Today's show is sponsored by CBT Nuggets. We know that Cloudcast listeners are curious about technologies, but how are you really learning to master the technologies needed to be a cloud expert? You know, when Aaron and I got started, we had to buy books, set up labs, find experts, and then hope something didn't crash. CBT Nuggets makes it easy to either get hands-on skills or get certified with the latest cloud technologies. Whether it's AWS, Azure, cloud automation, security, or app dev, CBT Nuggets has you covered. What I really liked about CBT Nuggets is the online instructors are both knowledgeable and they keep it interesting. Their courses have built-in test questions, virtual coaching to help plan your certification path, and I can always jump into a virtual lab to get hands-on at any time. Check it out at cbtnuggets.com/cloudcast to sign up for a free learner account. This unlocks tons of great training, and you'll be entered into a drawing for a free 6-month premium subscription. That's cbtnuggets.com/cloudcast.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Hello and welcome to the Cloudcast. We're coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Just Aaron this week, and wanted to start off by saying I can't believe it's March already. The year is flying by. We hope everyone is, of course, staying safe, staying healthy, and really looking forward to this year. For Cloud News of the Week, I'm going to dive right in. We have a Cloudcast news article, and then we want to talk about an IPO that is coming up, how a big vendor did with quarterly results, and lastly, a bit of a sad goodbye to some folks that know the electronics industry, certainly on the West Coast. So with that, we're going to jump right in. Cloudcast Basics Season 2 has launched, and it is live. We did put a trailer in the feed. But if you're interested, or if you know anyone that is interested, this is more of a business-focused season. We did put about 8 shows out there talking about innovation, how cloud can reduce costs, how cloud can reduce risks, create business advantage, trade-offs in architectures, impacts to IT staffs, how you can use cloud to enable business transformation, really trying to hit all angles for business owners. So again, if that is interesting to you or you know someone, go ahead and send them the link. We would love to both get more listens as well as more reviews for Cloudcast Season 2. And with that, jumping into our next story, good friend of the show, DigitalOcean, and everyone's favorite developer, Cloud, has filed an S1. And I found some interesting things in there, some things we knew and some things I learned as well. Over 570,000 customers in 185 countries, and actually 65% of their revenue is actually international revenue. I found that really fascinating. But they have really been able to find a good market, especially being very developer friendly, very API driven, and continue to do so. And we certainly wish them the best and nothing but success going forward. For our third story, we wanted to report about Dell and how Dell was doing. They announced financial results for the year and record revenue, $94 billion with a B dollars for the year. And a couple interesting points I wanted to really talk about in that. Number one, what they call the Client Solutions Group, which is, it's PCs, if you want to call it that, and moving the units within the PC division. 50 million units during the calendar year. 8% increase year over year. So apparently people are still buying laptops. You know, a lot of folks like to kind of talk about people have moved on to other devices, but there's still a very large market out there for laptops. Infrastructure group kind of flat year over year. And of course, VMware is chugging along like VMware always does. And lastly, for our last story, a bit of a kind of a sad goodbye. Fry's Electronics kind of closed up shop recently. And I finally remember them. I wasn't able to get out there that much. They didn't have them here where we are in North Carolina. But, you know, for those of you on the West Coast, certainly a staple. And I do remember one of my first visits to Silicon Valley, one of the things I was told was there's two things you need to do. Number one, you need to go to In-N-Out Burger. And number two, you need to visit a Fry's. Both of them were great. I remember Fry's. Fry's was always a fantastic place to go. If you were out in the area and, I was kind of working IT jobs at the time, if you had to do an install and you forgot a cable, hey, Fry's was always the place to go. So certainly sad to see them move on, but unfortunately our industry has changed and they just weren't able to really transform themselves as they wanted to, and have decided that it's best to just not continue going forward. And with that, we're going to end Cloud News of the Week and jump on to our main segment.
Today's show is sponsored by Cumulo. Cumulo makes managing file data at massive scale radically simple. File data is at the center of the human experience. It transforms genomic research into drug therapies, factory logs into machine learning, LiDAR images into maps, and video into entertainment. File data is the currency exchanged in digital classrooms and labs, advancing knowledge and research around the world. Freeing users and the applications that depend on vast amounts of file data is what Cumulo lives for. As the world goes digital with unstructured file data driving human experiences from movies to new vaccines, Cumulo makes it simple for you to store, manage, and create with file data at massive scale, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. Experience Cumulo's file data platform for free today. Cumulo.com/cloudcast. That's QUMULO.com/cloudcast. And try it with your data today. Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a cloud-scale monitoring platform that unifies metrics, logs, and traces from technologies like Istio, AppMesh, and Envoy. Plus, Datadog's Service Map automatically plots out the dependencies in your microservices architectures for seamless, context-rich troubleshooting. With rich visualizations, algorithmic alerting, and more than 250 vendor-supported integrations, Datadog allows you to monitor your distributed applications in real time. Start a free 14-day trial today by visiting datadog.com/cloudcast. And Datadog will send you a great free t-shirt. That's datadog.com/cloudcast.
And we're back, and welcome back to the show. This week we have a super interesting guest, Shira Shamban, which, by the way, I can't pronounce, Shira, I can't pronounce your name nearly as coolly as you can. But
you did it very well.
But thank you for your time today. And we're going to talk a little bit about solving developers' security challenges. And Shira is CEO of Solvo. And let's kind of start a little bit with your background. You have a super interesting background and a really interesting journey with cybersecurity that started with the Israeli Defense Force all the way to CEO of Solvo, newly funded startup. So with that, Shira, tell us a little bit about yourself.
With pleasure. First of all, thank you, Aaron, for having me today on the show. It's a great honor. And yes, I would love to tell you more about my background and how I turned into cybersecurity, because I can tell you that my childhood dream was to become a doctor and not to work in cybersecurity, not to be a CEO of a startup. But as you know, mandatory, military service is mandatory here in Israel. Everyone goes to the military, and so did I. And I was drafted to the intelligence. And this is where I learned and was exposed to technology and to doing research and to making decisions based on data. The more I learned and the more I did, the more I was fascinating about it. And one thing led to another, and I stayed way past my mandatory service for a total of 13 years, where I learned a lot about cybersecurity and about how different nations work in this domain. And after those 13 years, I decided it was time for me to learn what the real life is like. I had absolutely no idea. You always hear about different companies, different startups, different tech giants, but you don't really feel that you're a part of it when you're in the military. And then, I was totally shocked and amazed at how things work in real life. I joined a cloud security startup named Dome9, where I was creating a new intrusion detection product. Dome9 got acquired a couple of years ago, and this is when I always felt like I should be an entrepreneur, but I didn't know when is the right time to do that. At the day of the acquisition, I knew that today is the day. Right now is the best time. It took me a little while longer after that. It took me a little more than a year. But 1 year ago, I established Solvo with my co-founder, David, who was also a colleague of mine in Dome9. And we decided to take one of the most popular problems in this domain, in the cloud security domain, the problem of the tension between the software developers and the security teams. This tension is creating a lot of serious security issues. We decided to just solve it for them. It's like two kids not getting along, so you just take their toy away. So we take their security problems away and solve them for these two personas.
And that's a fantastic introduction into our topics today, because it's a really good way to think about it. I mean, at the start, this rise of CI/CD created some amazing benefits to software development. But at the same time, I think it's safe to say it did that at the cost of creating some security challenges, right? So let's start there. Why do developers seem to have so many challenges today with security, especially in production environments?
So first of all, let's say that I think that the problems are not unique or especially in the dev environments. We as security practitioners are forced to put more efforts into production because it's more sensitive in the sense that it contains real data. We have our customers using our application in production. So when you do the math and you have to decide where to protect more, you obviously protect production first. Not always you have enough resources to protect the pre-production environments. A couple of years ago, a very large company named Imperva got hacked in its staging environment in the cloud. The developers had real data of customers in the staging as well, but they didn't protect it as much as they protected the production environment. So this is why we should be paying attention to all of our environments, from the local, from the dev, from the QA, all the way to staging and production. Now, when we moved to the cloud, the developers got the keys to the kingdom. They were given AWS account or Azure accounts, or depends on your cloud vendor. And what developers really want to do is run fast. They want to write code. They want to deploy it. They want to see it running. They don't really care about everything around. They don't care on what kind of machine are you running your code. Is it the best or ideal machine to be running your code on? And they don't care enough about how secured the code and the application are. It's usually being regarded as a task they don't want to do. And when they get an email or any kind of notification from the security team, they roll their eyes like, what's now? What do they want from me? This is not a task they like to do, and I understand them. They don't have enough knowledge. They don't have enough experience. And basically, they're not held accountable for it. They are measured on delivering code, deploying the next feature, and making sure the product is working. They're not held accountable for security, so they are not putting enough efforts into that. But unfortunately, security is a very important part of our products. I guess it has the second priority after having a working product. You want to have a working, secured product. And they were forced to deliver some security. They don't want to deliver security because they don't know how to do it. And then, you have that tension that I was talking about.
And I think anybody who's been in this background, when you mentioned previously about, the security person kind of comes along and a number of our listeners probably got smiles on their faces about that. And we've kind of grown into this culture of okay, there's DevOps, and then increasingly we hear about DevSecOps now, and there's also a term introduced called shifting left. And
Right.
tell us a little bit, Shira, what does that mean, and how does that relate to the larger concept of DevSecOps?
So we expect the shifting left to happen, or at least we hope for it to happen from the design of the product, even before we started writing a single line of code. When we talk about how it should be working and what kind of architecture do we want, this is actually when we should be talking about how to make it secured as well. Unfortunately, today, in the age of the cloud, people really care about delivering fast. So the design part is actually being done while coding on the fly. So we don't really stop to think about the big architecture of the product, especially when you're talking about the smaller companies, the startups that are actually building a product from scratch and not, creating a new feature in a very large and existing product. So when we talk about shifting left, we talk about starting the design of the security very early on and not fixing issues in a working product in production. Now, as we shift left, we have to start working with the developers and making sure that the code that they deliver to us is actually a very secured kind of code. Now, today, when we're in the cloud, all of a sudden, the cloud infrastructure is actually a part of the application. It's no longer, the developer writing a piece of code and then handing it over to the IT manager to deploy it in the on-prem data center. Now the developer is actually running their own cloud infrastructure. They can decide on what kind of machine do they want to write this new piece of code. Are you using Docker? Are you using EKS, ECS, Lambda functions? What kind of infrastructure are you using? And where do you want to run your code? So the developers are making decisions around IT, around the infrastructure, and where the code is going to run. And they're not making those decisions based on, the security requirements, or they're not really taking that into consideration. And they don't understand the pros and cons of creating a serverless application or creating a container. So as security practitioners, we understood that we actually have to help the developers, but we need to stop trying to help them in the old way. The old way would be, creating some kind of scanner and then giving them a long list of fuck-ups they have to fix.
That's perfect, yes.
Yep. Here is the list of all the CVEs that we found here. Here is the list of the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities that we found here. And then good luck to you fixing that. The developer is looking at the list saying, what? Like, I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to prevent SQL injection, which is like, one of the vulnerabilities I would really expect not to see ever again, but they're so easily found in the wild. So that's like super trivial, but it still happens. And sometimes,
go ahead, please, go ahead.
Sometimes I meet developers here and there, and I ask them, like, out of pure curiosity, can you explain to me how do you make sure that you are preventing an SSRF attack in your web application? Can you explain to me how are you validating the input in your application? And very often they look at me, those terms that I'm using are not strange to them, but this is not really a part of their code writing process. So they are aware of these attack vectors or these vulnerabilities, but thinking about how writing a clean and secure code is not really a part of their routine. And it's a problem. But I think that we should stop trying to solve this problem in the old way. The new way has to be listen, you guys, I know you don't know how to do it, so please let me help you and take this off of your plate, instead of, listen, let me give you a training about this.
And that's a perfect segue into Solvo. So let's talk about Solvo for just a little bit. How does Solvo solve this problem as code being pushed, and how do you integrate with the cloud providers, and tell everyone a little bit about this concept of a least privilege model and how it is implemented?
Sure. So the cloud providers put up this term of a least privileged principle. This is them actually telling us, listen, when you give permissions, give the most minimal ones that you can give that would still make your application functional. This is being a part of the shared responsibility model. The cloud providers are telling us, listen, we're responsible for the bare metals, but everything that happens after is your responsibility. The security in the cloud is not done anymore on the network layer as it used to be in the on-prem days. Today, we do security in the IAM, Identity and Access Management. That mechanism allows us to describe very, very specifically what kind of security permissions do we want to give to each and every component or asset that we have in the cloud. And we should create that security permission to be least privileged. We should only allow it to execute the specific actions that it needs in order to be functional. So this is the least privilege principle. And when we hit the road, David and I, the first thing we did was actually go and talk to cloud users in different parts of the organization, from developers to DevOps to the CISO and the CISO team. We wanted to hear about their experience, because obviously they each experience the cloud in a different way. The developers love it, they love running it, they love accelerating in the cloud, and the security team is just trying to make sure they don't have any open S3 buckets. So they each see it from a different perspective, and we wanted to hear about their problems and how they see them. And once we realized everyone is talking to us about how to make sure the infrastructure and the application are secured from development all the way to production, from the left to the right, we realized that this is a serious problem that affects everyone. And then we went to look at what other products exist in the market, or what is the approach that the market has right now. And we realized that most solutions are focused in the development stage, and are the same type of solution that I mentioned before, that just gives you a long list of findings or risks or alerts that you then have to go and remediate. And we thought to ourselves, well, this is unfortunate. We don't want to be in the stage of remediation, especially not in production. Let's try to prevent it before we mitigate it. So this is why we understood we have to do that shifting left. If you want to solve the problem as early as possible, let's try to actually do the design in a most secured way. So we realized that we have to shift it left, and that we have to talk to developers. And this is something that not every security product wants to do. Talking to developers, this is a tough crowd, talking to developers. They're very sarcastic. They don't want you to bother their current workflow. They think they know better than everyone else. So we knew we have to be very, very gentle with them.
And you, it's really fascinating, Shira, because at the end of the day, this idea of prevention and mitigation is a lot of times in direct contrast with the go fast nature of developers, without a doubt. And in addition to everything we just talked about, you recently released a security health check tool for cloud accounts as an additional layer or an additional tool in the toolbox for this prevention and mitigation. Can you talk about that a little bit as well?
Absolutely. So we call this tool the security genie. That's your little helper in the cloud. We wanted to give the cloud users the opportunity to get a report that would tell them about the major misconfigurations that they have in the cloud. So in that security genie report, we're going to point out at the use of admin permissions, or the use of full access permissions, which again there isn't really a good reason to be using these kind of permissions. Don't use the full access, give the specific access that is necessary. So we point out at the usage of these kind of permissions, and we also point out at the third parties that you gave access to in your account, because obviously, again, in the cloud era, we have a lot of integrations with other third-party vendors. This is very, very common practice. Should be done carefully. You should always be aware of who you gave your API keys to. But assuming that you already did that, you should always know who has them and maybe revoke them if they're unnecessary. So we will also list those third parties to you, and then give you the list again of the specific cloud assets and specific roles in your account that are misconfigured. So it's really up to you to decide if you want to solve all of them, if you want to solve some of them, but this is something that we give every user for free, so that as a security practitioner, you would know where you stand and if there are very crucial things you should be handling and solving. After people run that scan, they can later use the Solvo freemium product that actually checks the specific security policies that you're using, be it the admin or the full access, or even if you created security policies yourself. We go over them and we actually create new security policies from scratch that specifically suit and fit your cloud application. So we help you become least privileged automatically, because as I know, the cloud users, they don't have the time to craft a security policy that is least privileged for their own application. This is why they use very generic policies, and this is exactly how they get exploited and then being hacked.
Yep. That's fantastic. Thank you, Shira. Now let's shift gears for a second, because there's another topic here that is really fascinating to me, and I think will be to the listeners as well. We've talked to a lot of startups over the years, and times have changed when it comes to venture funding, as well as raising rounds of money. Your first round of funding was recently raised completely remotely. Tell us a little bit about that experience and some of the challenges you faced, and were there any advantages to it as well?
Absolutely. So honestly, when we thought about all the unexpected things that could happen to us while working on a new startup, we did not think about a world pandemic. We thought about, having a lousy idea. We thought about not finding the right customers. We definitely did not think about this. And as we started meeting investors, we met investors last year face to face for 1 or 2 meetings. And then people started talking about this disease, and started meeting less and less. And they didn't even switch meetings to Zoom. They just stopped meeting because, no one knew if this is the end of the world and what is exactly going on here. So people just stopped meeting, and we were worried that maybe, we made the worst decision of our lives. Maybe we shouldn't have left our jobs and, went all in with this new startup. But we never stopped believing in our idea and in the need to solve this problem. So we kept on meeting as many investors as we could, pitching them our idea. And we ended up, at this point, we were already doing that over Zoom. And one of the investors from TLV Partners actually thought that this might be very interesting. He was also very impressed by us being very determined to raise money, even in this very weird situation. Definitely the advantage in raising money during these weird times is the fact that we could meet quite a lot of investors in a short period of time. I'm sure that in normal times, just running through all of these meetings could have taken us, triple the time.
Sure.
Because we have to drive from one place to another. We have to prepare. Sometimes you are fortunate enough to meet investors from abroad. We didn't have to travel anywhere. We did all the talks from the living room. So that was pretty amazing. The entire process was really fast. Once we had a good click with TLV Partners and with the partner who invested in us, things went really fast. So if I have one message to people who wish to be entrepreneurs and are worried about the fundraising part, just do it. Just go and talk to as many people as you can, and have those Zoom meetings. It's very difficult, but it's not impossible to create the rapport, that closeness over Zoom. It's not the same as looking to someone in the eyes, but you can definitely do that on camera as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Shira. That's fantastic insight. And I think it mirrors a lot of what a lot of us have gone through and facing the challenges. Now, you talked about passion and kind of perseverance and drive during the fundraising. Last topic, and then we'll let you go. You're also very passionate about empowering women and underrepresented communities in our industry as well. So tell us a little bit about your ongoing partnerships with She Codes, Cyber Ladies, and other mentoring programs you're involved with as well.
With pleasure. A few years ago, when I was still in the military, I was asked by a local conference to give them a talk about cybersecurity. And I thought to myself, who am I to be speaking at a conference? I mean, do I know enough to talk about it? So initially I decided to say no, but I don't know, I ran into an article that the topic was, why aren't there more women in cybersecurity? And the answer was that there aren't that many women who are role models. So other women just assume that this is not the right domain for them, because obviously there aren't other women in that domain. And I decided that at least in this small topic, I can probably help. And I decided to be out there as much as I can to help other women to see that they can definitely do that. If they want to go into cybersecurity, here, look at me, I'm there, so you can join me if you want. And this is why I take a lot of my time to talk and mentor, either one-on-one or in larger groups, to women and other communities who want to get into STEM, who want to get into cybersecurity, who want to get into computer science, because it's really important to give an example. It's really important to show them that they can. Very often in school, in high school, they got the message either verbally or not verbally that math or physics or chemistry is not really for them. And we have to change this reality. It's changing step by step. And I think that all of us, by the way, men and women alike, can help to make a difference and to deliver that message that, we are here for you and you can do it. And we would definitely love to help you, make the most out of yourself. I also started another mentoring program called Security Diva for women who want to get into cybersecurity, where they can actually meet mentors and talk to them about, career, about studying, about whatever that is, just to help them get started. And last year, I was taking an elevator in the office, and I saw a familiar face. I was trying to remember what was that lady's face. And she saw I was looking at her, and she reached to me and said, "Hey, I remember you from the mentoring meetup." And I said, "Yes, I remember you too. How are you? What are you doing here?" And she said, "Listen, I got my first job here." I was like, "Wow, I'm so happy for you. You have to come to the group and tell everyone how you did it." And she shared a very, very impressive and inspirational story with everyone. So I think that, every step you take, you have no idea how you're going to influence other people's lives. So if anyone here is listening, don't be shy, reach out, help to someone, because you have no idea what one sentence could change for them.
Yep, that's fantastic. That's a great story. Thank you so much. And what we'll do for everyone is we'll have links to those programs in the show notes as well. So, sure, that's about the time we have for today. So just wanted to say thank you very much for your time. And in closing, is there anywhere you recommend everyone follow you, follow the company, above and beyond the links that we'll have in the show notes?
Yeah, you can definitely reach out to us or to me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. We're everywhere.
That's a great way to put it. Fantastic. And so with that, on behalf of Brian, who wasn't able to make it this week, Shira, thank you very much for your time. And to the listeners, thank you very much for your time this week. And we'll look forward to talking to everyone next week.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.